Welcome back. I'm Emily Johnson, Certified Financial Planner and Managing Director of Polaris Capital Advisors, and I am joined again by the amazing and educated Todd Harlow of Work Plan Retire, and we are kicking off our Income and Retirement series, a 4-part series that we hope will be educational, informative, and something that you can actually take action on in your own financial life. So we're starting off with sequence of returns as it relates to income. So I know that sounds extremely exciting, but when you see an application, it actually is pretty exciting. So where should we kick it off?
No, thanks. And just to reset, you know, as you mentioned, the corporate retirement plan world is coming around to the way that it used to be in the old, defined benefit or pension world, which is we need to define the person's lifetime income, kind of like Social Security.
Right.
And we've done a bad job of communicating that. It's going to that direction, and certainly your world, people often get distracted.
The fact that so many pensions have gone away is an indicator of the fact that the focus has been taken away from providing income for clients forever. Nobody wants to take the responsibility for that, which is really what we feel our job is creating income for individuals forever.
Yeah, and just a little digression as to how and why this is so relevant in both of our worlds. When someone came with their nest egg historically, it's ready to retire, and even the most basic or dare I say unsophisticated investor, they kind of understand it's time to take less risk. They don't have as much time.
They don't want to take any risk.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and so they're giving their nest egg, and it was thought you buy like a bond,
right?
Or maybe a
CD,
a certificate of deposit, FDIC insured. Our mission, remember, was to be understood. So if we're digressing or if we're making this a little basic, that's by design. We want to be understood. Instruments like bonds and CDs are referred to as fixed income. You hear it on the CNBC all the time. Each fixed income investment, like an individual, has a credit rating. And think about it with your mortgage. You kind of get this. Rates are down right now. It's kind of a good thing if you're a borrower.
Right.
But if you're a lender and you want to collect the interest, a little different story.
Not so great.
So when you're in retirement and you go in the traditional sense with your nest egg and say, here it is, pay me my rate of interest and let's call it a day.
Right.
Based on what your mortgage rates are, guess what? It cuts both ways. Your interest that you're receiving is what? Pretty darn low.
Right.
So
and yet you say to your advisor, wait a second, I thought that we assumed I'd like 8%. I'd like 8% a year. That's
exactly.
That's what's always been on my spreadsheet. I need 8% a year. And we say, uh-oh.
No, great point. And the joke is the 6% CDs are not under your desk. They're not
right.
available. They're just not there. So this is sign of the times.
So
So
it is what it is.
the importance of income as a process versus income as a product, like a product would be a bond, a product might be an individual annuity, where it is just embedded in this interest rate story, is very challenged based on where we are today.
Right, and there is no silver bullet.
There's
no silver bullet product. There is not. If somebody tells you there is, run and hide.
That's right. I agree with you. Run. So the first step in this income as a process, dare I say, is humility. And what I mean by that, it is understanding and having the experience and humility to look at your clients who, in a large part, ask us for the crystal ball. Here, I'm coming to retire. Tell me what the next 30 years look like. And we have the courage to look back and say, I have no idea. Now, we have some ideas and models, but I think much like the storm we just had in the low country, and I'm in Atlanta, we can't predict it exactly, but we can prepare.
Right.
And I think that's what this first series about, this humility of sequence of returns we're teeing up. And I want to show you something about that. Is when you're meeting with Emily in the financial planning world, or somebody, one of the participants in our corporate retirement plan world, is having that. I think this is where the trust goes up when a little bit of humility is introduced.
Completely. That, and also we really don't, we'll have clients that come and say, should I retire this year? Should I retire next year? I'm looking at 5 years out. What do you think about
That's
that?
a good one.
And I have to say, not just even that I don't have a crystal ball, but I have to say I don't know what the market will look like then. I have a pretty good idea where our investments are going to be going. I have a pretty good idea where we are in general, but I don't have an exact science for that. And so, but at the same time, my answer has to be, you can retire when you want to. We just have to figure out the process to make it work for you. How much money you're going to need, how long, trying to make it last, how we're going to position to get there. But the goal is, you should be able to retire whenever you want to, but we don't know what kind of environment you're going to be retiring into. And that's what Todd is going to drive home here with our next slide.
You got it. And that's a great transition. Let me just give some credit to this entire process and so forth. What you're about to see are some slides that drive home this point of how important the sequence of returns can be on both sides in terms of a successful retirement or a not successful one if you don't incorporate process, which we're going to highlight. But the people involved are incredible, some of which, one of which, Harold Avensky, doesn't mean hill of beans to most people. But he's largely regarded as like the godfather of financial planning in terms of books he's written and things like that. He's behind this. Bill Bengen, who we're going to talk about. These are very well respected folks. And then one of my mentors, Jack Gardner from Thornburg, who came up with these. So I just want to kind of mention that this is not necessarily the Emily and Todd think that we're smarter than the room story. There's a lot of academia and research behind this. So
what we really wanted to do, as we said earlier, is we want to take the financial complications and overlay it on your life in a way that you can actually apply it. So we're taking that academic background and trying to bring it to a usable level. So here we go.
Yeah, a great point. So Emily, why don't you walk them through this?
Okay, so here's a standard, hopefully you can see this on your screen. Here's a standard sequence of returns over 2 time periods. The whole purpose of this is going to show you that timing really does matter. So timing is everything, but we don't have our crystal ball, so how do we deal with that? This, what you'll see right here, these are 20-year cycles, so year 1, year 20. Here's a period from 1989 to 2008. Pretty darn good series. In the first year, returns on I believe this is the S&P, on the S&P 500, 31, 32%. Next year, down 3%, not so bad. Next several years, very good returns. In fact, we have a period of about 10 years of very good returns until we get into, I guess, the early 2000s, back in the tech debacle, and we had a couple bad years there. Long story short, that individual, if he or she were to retire in 1989, for the next 20 years would have an average annual return of 8.43%. They thought they retired into a great market. It was a great market. We had a couple bad years. 8.43% ain't so bad. That's pretty much what our clients are looking for and what we've built into our returns if we can get them to stick with a plan for 20 years. The second column here is also a 20-year sequence, and it's from 2008 backwards going to 1989. So if you were to actually retire in 2008, we know what happened in 2008. I know it very keenly. You know it very keenly. Most of you probably do, and most of you don't want to go through it again, which impacts your behavior quite a bit with investing. So if you were to retire in 2008 and go through this sequence where you actually lose 37% in 2008 versus gaining 31% the year that you retire, you'd probably come in my office crying and wanting to sell everything out of the market because you just retired and suddenly your nest egg has been decimated. However, you would have then missed the next 5 solid years. Yes, you have the same tech debacle in here. And then the point of this whole thing is that at the end of this cycle, whether you started losing 37% or started gaining 31%, you still have an average annual return of 8.43%. So the point is, you need to stick with the plan for the full period of 20 years, but you have to be able to stomach the plan and you have to know what that plan is, and that's the process that we're talking about. So I don't know if the year that you retire, we're going to lose 37% in the S&P, and I don't know if we're going to be up 31%. If I did, I would love to tell you.
These are like the tracks of the storm.
Right.
We don't know exactly. We saw that as ad nauseum the last few weeks or the last few days anyway. We don't know, but we have to prepare.
And what I'm saying is when you have a process, you will be okay in either one of these scenarios. When you have a plan and a process that you're willing to stick to, you will be okay. And that's the very baseline question that I usually get is, will I be okay?
You got it. And we're going to get into those, what we call the insulation or the bubble wrap of the process that is the preparation, the boarding up of the house or whatever analogy you want to make. This, I want to take one quick point. So we have the same average annual return, 8.43, and this is one of Wall Street's little tricks, dare I say. And I want to make even a simpler analogy, just everyone watching. Let's just take a $100,000 investment, try to make it easy. You're up 50% one year, you're down 50% the next year. The average annual return, as published by your mutual funds and any periodical, is 0. What's the money? You're down 25%. It's $75,000. Let me show you how this works on the chart you just watched. The green line right here, using a $1 million portfolio over those same 20 years, depending on my little cursor, we'll just use the hands, is 235,103 if you timed it wrong. The other,
meaning if you got freaked out and got out of the market and missed the good years.
That's right. And in the case of timing it right, or dare I say just being lucky and retiring into a decent market, the sequence of returns is the difference of almost $3 million. And to put it in any more blunt terms, the difference between retiring happy or eating cat food, dare I say. So I want to jump back one more right here and talk about this thing that Emily mentioned about crystal ball. This blue lines are representing successful retirements, 30-year retirements from 1926 to 1973. Just happened to be a very exemplary period. You don't even need to be a rocket scientist. I'm going to keep this simple. You can just quick glance see that red lines are unsuccessful retirements, and they are about a 50% coin flip versus the blue lines being successful retirements. Who would invest with us if we said your retirement is up to a coin flip?
Nobody, or
No
nobody
one.
should.
So to conclude sequence of returns and the humility point I mentioned, we have to prepare because we don't know. And when you look at different time periods of and how Wall Street, dare I say, tricks in the way that average annual returns are calculated, it can be, as W once put, fuzzy math. So it's all more critical in setting up the three periods or the three modules we're going to talk about next of what the bubble wrap or that insulation looks like to prepare for this.
Okay, so how do we make sure that we're one of the blue lines? Please stick with us. We'll be right back with step number 2 in our income series.
Thanks.